Hi, Collective. It's Kai. The void space is where the feminine feeling, intuition, and emotional safety reside. The forms of the masculine energy, where structure, rebuilding, and I forgot the other point that I read today, is allowed. And I was thinking a funny thought of like, oh, that's what I'm calling in within the masculine energy, is the ability to do so. And I'm sure a lot of feminines can relate to this. Hello, once again, disclaimer. Hello, once again, disclaimer. Anyways, this is all just based on my own experience. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, you know. This is just a video log, so I video log my life. So therefore, please use your discernment when you're consuming my content or any content in general. I just had coconut milk with turmeric and black pepper because I am also in my menstrual phase, and I wanted to research like the coconut, you know. And it's funny because coconut milk is actually more of a masculine energy, and then coconut water is known to be more of like a yin energy, so feminine. Did I mix that up? Anyways, you get what I mean. So like yin and yang, the balance. This happens in my neighborhood where there's a car that goes off and then it stops. Why does it sound like it's getting closer? Oh my god. I just thought of something funny. Anyways, yeah, like I always thought about like how the feminine as a feminine entity identifies with the feminine and aligns with the feminine energy. I always thought like women really don't like being restricted, you know? So then what would be the best space for maybe even your masculine to like hold within, you know, to allow you to express? And you know, I've done a lot of like denotations from like different forms of information and like reading about these things as well as like within my own experience, right? And so when I read this in the description that I was reading today, I realized like that is so fucking true, because I feel that like the feminine energy tends to go very deeply into death. But as a Scorpio sun, that's like kind of integral to like my personality and like who I am with me. So I can't speak for everyone, obviously, but I wanted to share that because I felt that that was such an important aspect of the detachment that's necessary with the feminine, because feminines are very capable of connecting with things on not only a physical level, but like an intuitive, emotional, mental, body level. And so what would be the best way to like recalibrate and like allow one to connect and feel that safety no matter what is being presented? The void space, the unknown, that is also the subconsciousness, right? And so the moon card is ruled by not only Piscean energy, but the moon, which is like the mothering energy. And then the sun card, which is ruled by the sun, is correlated to not only the inner child's expression, but also like vitality, energy, action. And like, I don't know why my voice is being like this, but I think I'm just dehydrated. So I'm gonna drink some water. But I was really like feeling kind of like not necessarily at a crossroads, but you know when you have to have like expectations almost, or standards when it comes to like attracting people. And I recognize like, why am I so bothered by like so many masculines. I'm definitely not a misandrist because I do love men, but like I was like, it's not even like thinking like, oh, my standards are too high. It's like, no, like let's be real. Like there are definitely people out there that I have even met in passing almost, and I say that in like, I didn't really have like prolonged time with them, but like I've definitely experienced masculines who are like very open to me, and that's when I like, when the grasp of their energy starts to permeate from their being. And I feel that so strongly, and I'm like, ooh, it's kind of icky. And like it's that need to like possess, you know, possess, and like oof, that just sounds so horrid. But I was recognizing like the moment I feel that way, like let's say like a good example, obviously not going to expose this person, but like I'm going to share from my own experience that like, or my own perception of the experience is like, I live a certain lifestyle, especially because I do tarot, and like I'm very spiritual and like astrologically attuned. Like I like deliberately choose and want to like connect to the astral planes and astrological transits. So my schedule is very different, and I was feeling very judged from this person. Like they're telling me to like not do that, like live my life a little differently and stuff like that, you know, like telling me pretty much what to do, but like in a very like, almost I could say meek way. And so that in its own right was like, damn, like that's not your place to say, because it's like this might not have significance to another person, which I totally understand and like get, you know, because it's like that's valid as fuck, right? And so I recognize like the moment I feel those kinds of things in an interaction with the masculine, I get very like put off. And so, and then I met another person who like was kind of like lighthearted about it and like laughed about it and like joked around. And I feel that that's why it's necessary for humor to happen, just because of like, you know, when you experience something very intense and there is a moment in the like in lieu of that you actually can joke about it. That's kind of what I feel like that energy is. And so going back to what I was saying about the coconut, the coconut and the feminine energy, and how that void space is so like, it can be so like, I don't want to say jarring, but like I feel that that's probably the best word to use, just because like you're like floating in a fucking black hole, and like not even a black hole, it's like a space of nothingness. And that's where, when you close your eyes, the intuition, the like imaginations, the creativity flows through. So I found that to be a really interesting and also like significant point in my perception, is that like being able to house yourself within that unknown, allowing yourself to venture out into the like nothingness. And even like within spiritual words, it says like as above so below. And even like with like anything can happen and everything will happen, but also nothing can happen, and nothingness is just as important as the everythingness. And I find that to be such a beautiful cycle of life, is that like despite any of the things that I've gone through, definitely the most like significant thing that I've personally been drawn to has always been the like release process, the grieving process. Definitely in the past though, like I was attached to feeling that way. So that's how you can kind of like, maybe, obviously don't want to speak for you, but like maybe it would be a good way for one to identify like, oh, I'm getting addicted to this feeling, is what I told myself. I was like, I'm getting addicted to the feeling of grief. And like, I'm literally like conditioning myself almost that this is something that I always am going to feel every single time something leaves me, right? Something, can be anything. And so I recognized actually recently, maybe a few months ago or a month ago, I was experiencing that grieving process, but it wasn't as sad. And like last night I was meditating and just looking at the moon, And I was like recognizing like there's so many intense moments like where I was very traumatized and feeling like the dysregulation within me, to look at the moon and like cry like and weep, you know, like really fucking weep. But this time I was looking at the moon and like it just didn't, that form, that expression of grief just didn't apply anymore. Like it just didn't fucking apply. And so I feel that like letting the universe honestly speak for me is also just as important as speaking for myself. You know, it's kind of like one of those things where when you're so excited to talk about something and you go to someone that you want to share it with, just because they are someone that you want to share things with doesn't mean they don't have things to share with you too. So it's like that kind of energy is still being receptive despite wanting to give so much. And I feel that that's the feminine's like maybe even shadow aspects, like the things that like feminines attach to, whether it's being like petty or egotistical or prideful about someone else's choices. Like the kind of repeated things that I hear from some femmes is like, oh, like fuck them for like blah blah blah, or like, oh, they don't understand because they're a man or whatever. And I'm like, you know, I don't like to talk or think about it in that way, just because of the fact that I've met a lot of very intuitively attuned masculines. It doesn't mean they live their life like that though, you know, like masculines are, the masculine energy is emulated in a completely different manner. So it's like for them to base it off of their femininity, unless they align with that feminine energy, which once again, right, gender fluidity and like being spectrosexual myself, it's like I'm spectrosexual. I identify as the feminine being. My pronouns are she and they. And it's like, even that, right? Like, as I've learned with myself, I had a tendency to say that I'm very masculine, but in reality, it's that I'm very feminine too. And so that's why it's like a very interesting kind of like balance of understanding how I exhibit those like traits, how I can continue to cultivate that space, the void space, not expecting other people to do it for me, because the only way that I can actually feel at peace, and I say this understanding that like I grew up very hyper independent just because of the fact that I'm an eldest sister, and like I'm also Capricorn moon, so it's like, and a Scorpio sun, so it's like I really value my alone time, really value. So I like really needed to find a balance with that, and obviously still developing this, still figuring it out. I too am a student of life, and like it's just so interesting to me because I really love like just being spiritual. Like it's just so freeing. And my parents are very Catholic, so like my mom literally would go to mass and meet up to do prayer with the nuns like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday is when we'd go to mass all together. She was a fucking devout, you know? And like I respect that because that's also like faith and like your practice. And so this is like my practice. Like everyday life is a privilege, it's a gift, it's a blessing, it's not a given right. And I plan on continuing to make every day filled with just every day and night filled with all the things that I enjoy, the things that fill me up, the things that I wish to continue to share. And that's why this form of creation has always just worked so well with me, is because like I literally talk like to you guys every fucking day, and like that's just how I am. Like as a Capricorn moon and Mars, I love the consistency aspect of things. And it's funny because of the fact that like video logging every day, doing something like this also allows me to face a part of myself of like, oh wow, like things are constantly changing, you know, like, and I mean this even like my moods maybe, or my perception on something, like the information that I'm intaking throughout the day. And so therefore maybe even the perception shifts because I have now informed myself with something new. So it's no longer the same. And that's why like I don't find it to be jarring when someone like watches my content and they have their own impression of it. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like, even like I don't just mean like the positive, I mean like even the negative. It's like, like that's another perception, that's another perspective. And though I might not take it upon myself to actually embody that or evoke that from my own experience, that doesn't mean that it's not any less valid. And so, going back, sorry, once again, to the void space thing, I feel that I find myself like very attuned to that identification of like that freedom, but also that nothingness can feel very like, can feel very isolating, you know, like just being so for real, it can feel very isolating. And that's why us as humans, us as social beings, social creatures, and our cognizance and our ability to think and like be so intellectual and like have that knowledge and wisdom, it's so important to connect with people who are aligned with you. And the only way that I truly have found, well, okay, just to kind of like, oh man, there's something on my fucking lip. That's like a little bit of a miniature pet peeve of mine. I don't like when there's things on my face. Obviously, it's been hard, bro. Like, I have never experienced acne like this ever in my 25 years of life. I was very fortunate and privileged to have experienced all of my high school and college years and early 20s with like a clear and like cleansed face. But I was talking to my brother about that, and we were saying like, he was saying like the physiological aspects of hormones being like turned over when you turn 25. Fact check me if you'd like. I would really like to know, because I haven't looked into it myself. But what was I talking about? I like that point and I forgot. What was it? What the fuck? I was talking about oh my gosh. I'm like still really tired. This whole week has been just me going to meetings in the morning and then going to work at night, and like I'm leaving to Seattle soon for a family birthday thing, and like anyways, damn it, the freaking thing on my lip distracted me. I don't like that. What was I talking about? Oh, the isolation. What was that? Anyways, the isolation aspect and like, yeah, the importance of human connection and being able to present yourself most authentically to others, hand in hand, is based on your own expression. So in other words, being okay with who you present and express yourself to be when it's around other people. Not navigating your expression based on what other people perceive and respond with, right? But it's also to say from your rootedness to present yourself to the world in a more vulnerable and connected, authentic way. And it's like that also does come with speaking up for yourself, you know, setting boundaries and like speaking clearly, like communicating clearly and working through conflict resolution and things like that. So I just find this to be a very interesting aspect of life, you know, like the definite ways that there are moments where I kind of am like, oh, I'm letting other people, like I'm letting another person's response to me dictate how I am acting around them. And that could be, yes, correlated to people pleasing traits, but more so with like the level of like relinquished power that I'm giving another person over my own like personality. And that is why like some people say like who you surround yourself affects you. What your environmental factors, the things that my back hurts. Oh God. And my stomach, my uterus is so tender right now. I was like waiting for this phase of my body. I was like, when the fuck is it gonna happen? Because I feel like I didn't really have my period last month. And it happened on the full moon, guys. Yeah. I love it when I'm on my period. It really for me is like, this is the phase that I like connect to my divine femininity the most. Like, yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave it at that. I think that's just a nice little tidbit of information that I fell upon this morning before I start to channel and go into reading cards for people. Always like to spend the first hour of my day and the last hour of my day just for me. So yeah, thanks guys for listening and allowing me to speak. Truly, thank you for allowing me your presence. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being alive. And I'm sending you guys so much love and support on your own spiritual journey. Thank you. Bye, collective.